I believe I found a new way to differentiate logical fallacies to make them easier to understand. Currently, there is one differentiation between two types of fallacies. That is formal and informal. Formal is when you utilize an error in deductive reasoning and the structure of the argument, while informal fallacies are fallacies of the content of the sentence, the individual words, creating changes in the sentence structure overall. Now, please tell me if someone has already figured this out and where I can research it. Thank you. My idea is fallacies of pure deconstruction and partial deconstruction. The first group would be primary fallacies, simple ones that cannot be broken down or deduced further. This would be things like appeal to ignorance, appeal to authority, ad hominem, the most common and simple ones you find. But the thing is that the secondary ones, the more complex fallacies, if you deduct the definition of the actual fallacy, you will find it to be several primary fallacies. The reason I'm hoping to instill this in the concept of deconstruction is because it makes learning and breaking down these more complex fallacies and understanding them so much easier. First, you learn the primary fallacies, and then you can easily find the fallacious logic in the complex or secondary fallacies, because you already know the basic fallacies that are put together to utilize it. I'll give you an example. Let's go with the McNamara fallacy. This occurs when a decision is based solely on quantitative methods, like methods, hard data, and statistics. Meanwhile, all qualitative factors are ignored. This fallacy essentially looks only at the data and strips it of context altogether. This deconstructs first into another secondary bias called confirmation bias. There are actually two fallacies which reinforce McNamara's and the confirmation bias fallacy. So let's deconstruct it, shall we? Confirmation bias is when someone dismisses empirical evidence based solely on fallacy. But how do they do that? They use multiple fallacies. The two primary fallacies that make up confirmation bias are appeal to authority, where you say because he said it and he's authority, it must be right. The authority in this case being themselves. Then they will use the trickiest and most pesky fallacy of them all, the invincible ignorance fallacy. A deductive argument in circularity, which just goes round and around and around, and it's almost impossible to dismiss unless you find the objective truth, reinforcing cognitive bias. Luckily, I figured out how to do that, so when I write a book, I'm going to put all of this in there. Thus, these two work together. First, they used invincible ignorance fallacy to reaffirm his own objective belief that he is right, also known as the self-appeal to authority fallacy. Just an appeal to authority used on oneself. That, in combination with the invincible ignorance fallacy, makes this entire thing circular and almost impossible to deconstruct if you didn't know this. But now, you can go after the primary fallacies in their argument. Instead of just stating a complex fallacy they probably won't understand, you can get to the root and actually deconstruct their argument easily. Let me know what you think, and if you know the actual name for these things. I haven't been able to find anything online or anything in the library about it. Have a good one, and remember, primary and secondary bias. Primary are simple ones, secondary break down into primary. Follow for more deconstruction.